So let's get to talk about the Naira, which depreciated very sharply last week to a fresh record low, tumbling 6% to 668 and later touched the 700 level amid severe dollar demand pressure on the unofficial market. Nigeria also faces a crunching lack of inflows of foreign currencies via oil revenue, weak non-oil export proceeds, and rock bottom foreign direct investments. Discussing the country's foreign exchange management challenges with me now is Uche Uwaleke. He's an economist and a professor of capital markets, live from our Abuja studios. Good to have you on the show tonight. Professor, thanks for coming. Let's get straight down to business. The Nigeria's FX problems seem to be multi-faceted, hydra-headed in manner of speaking. What exactly is at the heart of this naughty part of our economic life?
Thanks very much, Bosin. First, thanks for inviting me. Of course, you know that the exchange rate is nothing but the price of foreign currency, and the price is determined largely by forces of demand and supply, market forces. So the major challenge we have in Nigeria today is the simultaneous effect of low supply of forex on the one hand, and high demand for forex, on the other. So it is the demand-supply mismatch that is at the root of the forex challenge, that we are having. Bosin, it used to be said that in the 80s, the Naira was strong, exchanging for, almost at par with the dollar, 1 Naira to the dollar. Recall too that at that time, the demand for dollar isn't as high as what it is today, and the supply was also more. If you take demand, for example, in recent time, the demand for invisibles alone, has jumped, has grown, astronomically. I was looking at the data by the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, which says that in the 80s, for example, or let us take 1998. As of 1998, the number of Nigerians studying abroad, was just 15,000. By 2019, that figure had jumped to over 100,000. And of course, that has implications for forex. So we are spending so much now on foreign education. And partly what you saw recently, why we had that a spike in the exchange rate, particularly in the parallel market, may not be unconnected with the prolonged ASU strike, which has led, it's brought about a situation where you now have many students, studying abroad. So we are spending so much on foreign education. As a matter of fact, between 2010 and 2020, data from the central bank says that this country spent as much as $29 billion on foreign education alone. Now, you take the case of healthcare, it's the same story. A situation in which we spend as much as $1 billion, per annum on medical tourism, again, doesn't help the, the exchange rate. You also come to imports, it's the same story. As a matter of fact, again, the data I saw, between 2010 and 2020, we have spent close to $40 billion on both education and health, on invisibles. And that's the equivalent of the reserves that we have today, about $40 billion. Now, import bill has also gone up astronomically. In the 80s, it was just about $15 billion, $15 to $16 billion. As of 2019, again, import bill has jumped to as much as $55 billion. As a matter of fact, at some point in 2014, it was as high as $64 billion. Of course, we've seen some reduction in recent time, partly on account of central bank's measures, to curtail, to promote locally made products, and of course to also curtail demand. So on and on and on. It's been a case of rising demand and low supply. On the supply side, of course, the story.
Yeah, the supply side is where I'm coming, Professor. If you allow me to try and find out who are those involved if we want to achieve a robust, stable, and productive exchange rate, who are those involved on the supply side? We'll talk about the demand side. Now you're just touching on that. How does it work?
Yes, on the supply side, again, it's been an unfortunate story over time. Over 90% of our forex earnings is only coming from one single product, from oil. So we need to diversify our export base. That's the only solution. And you also realize that even in terms of investments, foreign investments, again, that has also been on the decline, especially following the COVID-19. Foreign investments in this country, have also tanked. So you look at foreign investments, you're also looking at receipts from oil, receipts from non-oil. Although in recent times we've seen, some traction in the non-oil sources, again, on account of what the central bank, has done. But overall, the supply side is still weak. You know why it is very low in the case of oil? Yes, international oil price is rising, but of course, in terms of oil production, we've not been able to meet even our quota, from OPEC, largely on account of oil theft, on account of pipeline vandalism. So these are the issues that we need to, deal with, particularly now that we have an opportunity in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, to develop, as it were, the gas sector in particular, and the hydrocarbon that we have. Europe today, as you know, Boasin, is looking to Africa to help them diversify energy mix, to help them also find alternative sources of gas, which has been cut off. They've been trying to wean themselves off the Russian gas. So Nigeria presents that opportunity, given our huge gas reserves. We hear over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas.
Professor Waleke, just quickly, because of the time we have, we've got an economy that's often referred to as being dollarized. So I'm looking at strategies, any idea of what else we can do in terms of our foreign exchange market management, in terms of short to medium term, on a sustainable basis that can help us rebalance our supply and demand. How much of demand do we need to cut, and how much supply do we need to ramp up when oil is still a mainstay of our foreign exchange earnings?
Yes, you talk about dollarization. The question is, what is the reason behind dollarization? Or what is the reason behind currency substitution? Why would someone prefer the dollar, to the naira? Of course, one reason is because you have the naira is losing value. The domestic currency, talking about the high rate of inflation. Inflation reduces the purchasing power of the naira. So naturally, you find people now showing preference, for the dollar. So one way to reduce dollarization or currency substitution, of course, is to deal with the inflation challenge. And of course, the inflation challenge is not something that the monetary authority alone can handle, because most of the factors, most of the drivers of inflation in Nigeria today are supply side factors. So when we say inflation is cost push related, it means that the fiscal authorities have a lot of responsibilities in ensuring that inflation rate comes down. Insecurity is one of them. Insecurity is one of the things that is fueling inflation. The fact too that we have continued to import petroleum products is also another. By the way, we have also had, we've read, that over 30% of our forex earnings go into fuel imports. So if we don't deal with that, we'll continue to have this a challenge of demand supply supply mismatch. So we'll deal with insecurity, we'll deal with rising energy costs. Power is also there. Yes. So if inflation rate can come down, I bet you, Boasin, the exchange rate will drop. The naira will appreciate, and that's because it's been established that there's a relationship between the exchange rate and inflation. Under the purchasing power parity, a very simple model,
Yes.
it simply says that the exchange rate, between one currency and another, okay, will always adjust to reflect the differences in inflation rates between those two countries. So as long as our inflation rate continues to go up,
okay,
and that of the US, for example, relative to the US, you can also be sure that the exchange rate will continue to rise. So to deal with dollarization, we need to deal with inflation. The fiscal authorities must be alive to their responsibilities to handle the inflation challenge.
All right, we appreciate your time and perspectives on this issue. Professor Uche Waleke, economist and the president of the Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. Thank you so much and see you next time.